Where do I put this mic? I don't even know how to do this anymore. Yo, what's up? Long time, no talk, no see, no nothing, something. I haven't really been paying much attention to the channel, I must admit, and the podcast, which I guess this is for. Welcome to another afternoon, pseudo afternoon, because it's actually morning, and it's the first time I've been awake this early in a minute. But yeah, to get the formalities out of the way, hope you've been well. I've been doing okay. I've been surviving, going through the motions with school, trying to get by with very little income, so that's been part of my life as well, and just trying to make some progress with the YouTube channel, Boy with the Camera. But of course that has its own challenges and we are navigating. For today, we're just going to follow the pattern of what this podcast initially was, which is just following up on those weird written videos that I've been doing. This time we wrote about mess. Want to really get into this topic a little bit more because the video turned out very simplistic in what I ended up writing for that. I actually ended up nixing, I would go so far as to say maybe even 75% of what I had written down. And that's largely because I just had too much to say and it wasn't very organized or structured. It was kind of all over the place. So this is probably the perfect place to unpack all of that since it's a mess anyways. Starting with the actual written stuff in the video, on the surface, it's just one-dimensional, very simple. Reset often and find yourself in this cycle of making a mess, which naturally comes just from living your life. But to take time, at least once a month or whenever is appropriate for your lifestyle, to clean up and just spend a day not really thinking of anything. And it all started with just me taking a day off as well from everything. I put my phone down, turned off the brain, and just focused on cleaning. And the immense breathing space that one can get from spending just 30 minutes even cleaning up is phenomenal. I thought it was very profound how much that can affect a person, even though on the surface you're just cleaning. Like, it's not that important. But for me, it turned out to be quite important and of impact. So that was where it started. And then began playing with this idea or this realization that, it's very cyclical in nature, life. We go through these phases of making a mess and then making amends. But then this is where I guess my thoughts got very messy. And I'm trying so desperately to keep it organized right now even, but maybe we'll just let it fly. The first thing is that mess is often not made by just ourselves, right? People can contribute to it. Life can contribute to it. And things just kind of get out of hand, whether it be personal issues or career issues or issues of the world. Things just are always in a constant state of becoming messy and increasing mess. And then there's the fact that people approach that with varying mindsets. One person might, I don't even know how to organize this. Like, one person might approach mess and see it as a very negative thing. So it's this constant, continuous battle of keeping things clean, orderly, tidy. And for them, it might just be like a 10-minute routine every day in the morning where they just clean everything up and then they're good. It gets them set up for the day. And then people like me, I'm not quite sure I can maintain that realistically, because once things get really busy, I feel like I just don't have time to even do that. I feel like I'm swimming in negative time is something that I wrote down, but I didn't put in the video. You're swimming against the current of negative time, in which case you're playing catch up every day. So technically you really don't have time for rest or anything else because there's things you need to do. There's ground you need to make up. And there's just not enough time in a day to do that. And I think that's often the case with anybody who has a lot of ambition or lofty goals, where you can see the goal, you can see the steps you need to take towards that goal, and there's no way to rush that process other than to put in the time. So you might as well put as much time as possible every day and in order to get there just a little bit faster. It's kind of how I see things for myself. And whether or not that's a positive thing is kind of moot. I think the more important thing is to realize that once you do lock in and lose yourself in that kind of mental state and that kind of working lifestyle for a little bit, things will inevitably go wrong in many places, but just an overall sense of mess, right? And I think that's why the main thing I wanted to push with this video that I think I failed on was this notion of finding balance. I don't know. Yeah, finding balance, because like that's the main reason why I'm trying to pivot careers right now, or I'm in the process of changing careers, is that I felt like the advertising space and videography in general is very appropriate to hustle culture. Like living that type of lifestyle is very appropriate to that industry, because advertising, the very nature of it, you're trying to communicate with a very large demographic who sleep at different times and consume different things and yada, yada, yada. It's like you need to be on the ball, you need to be on top of things, and you really can't afford to stop, because people's consumption does not stop for your rest or anything like that. And what that led to for me was just I'm a person who loves to think and reflect, and I learn the most by talking to a camera like this or talking with very close friends about ideas and worries and whatever. So for a person like me, there was a lack of cycle, I guess, in terms of really sitting down and processing and then really committing to a period of work. Like there were no periods, essentially. It was just one long stretch of hustle, 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 hustle. Because I feel like that's what's required. And for some people, that's perfect, right? I feel like some people are built for that. And I'm not. I really don't like to live on autopilot. I don't like being mindless for longer than, I don't know, perhaps 3 months, I think is my max. Which is another thing I think we should consider, right? I don't think this type of thoughtfulness needs to take place every day. I don't think it needs to take place even once a week. It can be months, right? For some people, it could be even every year. But I do think that we need to recognize how necessary it is, right? And when it naturally comes to the forefront. For some people, it only comes during phases of burnout, which I think is kind of silly and foolish, but I also kind of see the merit of it and it makes sense logically, right? You just keep gunning, you keep going until you inevitably reach that point of burnout, and that's when you learn things. Now, what I'm kind of bothered by, though, for that type of pattern is that, I don't know, maybe it's just celebrity culture, maybe it's just social media culture, but people package those things as these profound realizations, as if you've just figured out life, and you're so mind boggled by what seems to be like a very rudimentary realization about life. And I don't know. It's very over dramatized is what I'm getting at. Because if you do it just a little bit more frequently, or if you just do it with a little bit more intent, it just becomes a very gradual and natural process, one that doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be a profound discovery or anything. And you don't need to blast it on social media and be like, yeah, I figured out life, and expect people to be, I don't know, cheering with you. I don't know. I'm an asshole, right? So I'm very critical of these things. But I think the general point there, if I try to package this nicely, is that living with just a little bit more intent gets us thinking a little bit more frequently. And just like practicing a little bit every day, we just become a little bit more fluent in this language of self-reflection and realizing, oh, maybe this is where I need to do, or where I need to go. This is what I need to do during this phase, this chapter in my life. And you begin to move with a little bit more confidence, and you begin to think with a little bit more confidence. Like people who are close to me, or maybe not even close to me, people who follow me on Instagram will know that I'm very, very outspoken about my beliefs and my opinions on current events and such matters. And I've gotten more than a lot actually, of people commenting privately to me that they're always kind of blown away by how honest I can be online, which is a very unfortunate thing now that I think about it. But I think that's where it comes from, because I know my beliefs have been tested again and again and again by myself. I've challenged my own beliefs a lot. I've put in the time to really think them through, and to let them become a part of me. But the other thing that comes with that is because I'm so used to being healthily critical of my own thoughts and beliefs, that if someone were to come along with a very sound argument and criticism of what I am saying and believe in, then I would be receptive to that. I would be open to that, because I speak the same language of being critical of my own thoughts and challenging them in order to spur a little period of reassessment, of learning more, gathering more information, and to process more. I don't know if we're still on topic. Mess. Anyways, what else is there? Yeah, I mean, really, that's it. So it's just encouraging this constant cycle of putting in the work, of being disciplined, of being mindless, of being on autopilot, and balancing that out with an ample amount of processing and learning, lamenting, if that's part of it too, grieving, if that's part of it too, and even the flip side of that, cheering and just being joyful, overtaken with joy, to really revel in the success and the wins that you experience, just all of it. If you don't do that, if you neglect that, that's the biggest disservice you can do to the human experience, right? Like, why bother having emotions then? Why bother having, I don't know, like, there has to be something. If you look at, for example, Clubhouse, which, yeah, we might as well talk about it. This episode's a mess, but I mean, when is it not? If we talk about Clubhouse, the thing that I've noticed is that people get this rush of either dopamine or serotonin or what have you from these conversations, because they feel like they're making progress, they feel like they're being productive, they feel like they're making friends, and they feel like they've accomplished something by having these conversations with people that are quote unquote deep or quote unquote meaningful or wholesome or something. And you'll hear it so often, like, wow, I needed that, or that was a great talk, and blah blah. And that this isn't to diminish that or poke fun at that. It's just alarming, because I've somehow managed to make that a part of my everyday, of my life, where the relationships that I have with people are geared towards that. They're in that same vein. Obviously, some people I just, like my best friends, we just dick around, right? We'll have a decently deep conversation once in a while, maybe. But outside of that, a lot of my relationships are built on that sort of foundation, where we can talk about slightly more deeper topics and really process each other's thoughts. Like, the thing is, with a conversation, the reason why people feel very productive, I think, is that you figure out a lot of your own thoughts and your own worries and your own complexes, I don't know, anything, through speech. Which is why, like, I'm a huge advocate for everybody buying a camera or buying a planter or a nice shade of paint on the wall and just talking to that inanimate object to get your thought. Like, this podcast, my channel, is all geared towards that, right? Is to sit myself down to speak these ideas out, unfiltered, and see how I feel about them. Does the fact that I hold this belief bother me? Do I need to challenge that? Do I need to fix that? Also, maybe there's another topic, and I don't know what I think about it. To speak about it and try to come up with arguments or statements is very revealing about how you think, what you think, and how you feel, I think. Maybe. We'll see. Like I said, this whole process is the same thing. And doing that feels productive, because you are figuring out more of yourself and you are figuring out what makes you tick. And that can translate to more intent, more purposeful productivity, and put you in the right direction. But also, again, just it all contributes to that sense of self well-being, I would even say, and just being mentally grounded. Now, the unfortunate thing about doing that on Clubhouse is that often this is a very lengthy process, right? You need to talk on for hours on end, I think, to really hash out a topic. And the very nature of that process is very repetitive. You'll run into the same thoughts, the same questions over and over, because that is the process of refining. But to do that with a group of people, you have to wait for everybody to put in their 2 cents, first of all. And then second of all, it's very repetitive, right? You're running in circles. You're talking about the same thing over and over and like being quote unquote mind blown over and over. But I don't know. It just seems very watered down, I think. And overall, I don't know. Whatever works for people, right? Like, I don't want to knock it, but I do think it's very inefficient. And you're kind of forcing people to sit through your own thought process and learning process. I mean, yeah, people can leave when they want, but leaving mid-sentence or mid-rant doesn't really make sense in a quote-unquote conversation where you're like, you know that the other person's there. Like something like this with the podcast and like my thoughts, I don't really expect people to sit through this, and I don't care if they do or do not, because again, this is very personal to me and for me. But also, if anybody wants to sit through it and garner something from it and gain something from it, then that's fine. That's great. Because I'm talking to a camera. Right? I'm speaking into this microphone. I don't see you. I don't know if you're there and you're sitting through this. And that's why it doesn't matter. But on an app like Clubhouse, you see them, their profile and whatever. So they can't really, the social dynamics of that situation is that they have to sit through your fucking spiel. And it might not mean anything to them. I don't know. It just seems like a waste of time. It's kind of how I feel. But I have met great people on Clubhouse, I will say. And I have high hopes for the app, I think. And I think it could turn into a really cool podcasting platform, which is why I'm still delving a little bit into it. But I don't know. That's something else I realized, though, is, for example, June Joseph, my personal channel, and what I've done on Clubhouse is that I kind of go into it wearing my heart on my sleeve and then trying to really connect with a few individuals. And once I've connected with a few individuals, I'm good. I'm out. And I don't know if that's good or bad, because my argument for that, though, is that a person can only invest so much time and emotion into another person. And in order to have a very deep relationship, it requires that level of detail or attention and putting in the time and emotion, really. But if time and emotion is a finite resource, then realistically you're limited to a certain number of people that you can invest that into, right? So to spread that out and have very shallow, like a lot of shallow relationships versus some very, very deep rooted ones, I would prefer going with very deep rooted ones, which is why I think I'm limiting myself to the people that I will interact with on a regular basis. Because basically I want to be that friend. I don't want to be that friend who's too busy when you are going through something. People confuse themselves and trick themselves into thinking that they have a lot of deep relationships. But I think if you were to really sit down and think about it and break it down, how many of those are legitimate? How many of those are actually worthy of that moniker, if you will, of depth, of deep, of very intimate? I don't even think like having 5 or 10 deep conversations with somebody makes you close, right? Like, it's a very good foundation and a good indicator of whether or not you guys will become like ride or dies. But it takes a nice, healthy, what do you want to call it, mural of all these smaller experiences, all these smaller emotions, finer details of a relationship and experience, alongside these kind of deeper conversations and quote unquote bigger experiences, maybe more turning points in your life, bigger seasons in your life. It's all of that together that creates a very truly deep relationship. And I don't think that people are affording themselves enough time to invest into those relationships, because I think realistically in life, how many of those can you actually have, right? Like for me, I have that with my family, and that's from my 20-something, 27, 28 years of living, of going through all the highs and lows with my family, that creates or leads to that depth of very select few friends. I'm thinking like maximum 5, maybe, that maybe not even, that I can truly say like, yeah, there's depth there, where I can be anything on the spectrum from silly and stupid to very serious to very heartbroken to very vulnerable with a very select few. And I don't know, like I just feel like it's not even a matter of I'm okay with that or not okay with that. I think that's just realistic. I think that's what the cap is on truly deep relationships. But then again, this is more of a brainstorm session. I don't know what I actually feel at this point. Maybe I'll be challenged. Feel free to reach out and challenge me on that. Cool. Is that it? Okay, well, fuck it. I don't know if I can think of anything else at this point, but that felt good. That felt very nice to just, it's been a while since I've sat down like this and just spoke and just listened to myself speak. No, that sounds so weird, but yeah, just again, the reflection process of getting ideas out and then beginning that refining process. Like, I think that the point of all of this was, again, right, bringing it back to mess, getting to a messy state of pseudo autopilot, just going through the motions, focusing on your day-to-day tasks or whatever, work, school, shit like that. And then making time to sit down and think about everything. How have you been? How are things going? Where are you headed? Do you have an idea? There's all these really important questions to tackle personally. So hopefully, if anybody is listening at this point, I would encourage you to do the same, right? Go and sit. Don't open up a book. Don't open up your phone. Just talk, think, write. For some people, journaling works wonders. For me, it doesn't. For me, it's this type of thing where I need to talk. I just need to have a free-flowing conversation, either with a very close friend or just by myself. And it helps to have a camera in my case because I can talk to something. And to the people that I wrote this video for, I highly, highly doubt that you guys are listening, but I really hope the best for you. And I hope that you do take the time to kind of reassess once things settle. I know there's a very messy phase for you and you have very no control over what is going on, but hopefully, wow, my voice, hopefully you find the time somewhere to sit down, think everything through, and make some decisions or not. All right, well, thanks for your time. Hope you're healthy. Bye-bye.